This is, I mean, the latest film by Christopher Nolan. This guy's a genius, isn't he? I don't think there's much debate. His previous works, I think, proves it time and time again. His greatest films, in my opinion, have to do with like Interstellar and The Dark Knight Rises, The Prestige. This guy he's, at this point, it's obvious he's more than just a director. He's an artiste, right? He's making films that are gonna last a very, very long time in everybody's top 10 list and have something to say. And I think what this film has to say was the most intriguing aspect of it. I will be talking about spoilers here. So if you've seen the film, follow along. If you haven't seen the film and you don't care, you can follow along. And if you haven't seen the film and you do care about spoilers, just go check out the film or skip to my parental advisory section to even see if it's something you would want to check out, right? Some people are a bit sensitive about certain things, and some people can watch certain things and some people can't, and that's okay. That's everybody's deal. I just try to help you guys out and let you know what you're about to get yourself into. So, The Odyssey. I went into the film not really expecting much, I'm gonna be honest, other than my trust in the director, right? You just put your trust in the director, you've seen his past works, you know his previous works, you know to bank on him. And like the studios, I just put my money on him. You know, it's Christopher Nolan. The trailers, I wasn't convinced by it. The work, like the names behind it, obviously is like huge, right? But an actor's name itself doesn't really indicate to me it might be a great movie or something. Director's name is different, right? Because they actually have, and they're basically like the masterminds, I like to say, of the film. You know, they say film is a director's medium, and you can see it throughout cinema and history and all of these things. Anyways, The Odyssey. What did I like about it the most, man? I liked the emotional aspect of it, especially the second half. I think the second half is great. I think the third act is close to perfection. This story is a lot in its core. It's a lot about this man coming back home. It's a lot about this soldier and what war does to soldiers. And are you even the same person? You know, after seeing everything that you've seen, after seeing all the atrocities, after seeing and being exposed to things that no human should, are you even gonna be recognized? You know, those themes that's what really brought it home for me. You know, somebody trying to come back home, somebody trying to get back to their family. And the other themes on the other side of it, which I think is like the big twist and the very Christopher Nolan-esque things that happen throughout the Odyssey story. This particular Odyssey story has a lot to do with guilt, regret, but also I think the core theme, which is very original to me, has a lot to do with hospitality. It has a lot to do with how you treat people, how you treat strangers, and how the violations of how one treats others can affect them and also send ripple effects throughout society or just throughout what's the standard and what's acceptable. And a lot of it has to do with Odysseus and the things that he did in order to help win the Trojan war, right? Which is, if you don't know, this whole thing is about a man who's living peacefully with his wife and son, right, in this place called Ithaca. It is a mythological story filled with monsters and magic and fictional settings and all of these things. So keep that in mind as I'm telling you this. He's then called to war, right? He's called by his king to go to war with him. And hey, we need to go to war. We need to take out these Trojans. They're Pishikaka. I need you to go with me. And I need basically to cast a sort of draft for all of these young boys or young men that also need to go with us to the war, right? And Odysseus goes. He answers the call, kind of forced into it, but he answers the call. And, you know, a war that I assume in their eyes was not supposed to last that long, lasted 10 years. It was a 10-year siege, right? If you don't know what a siege is, I like to think back to that scene in Game of Thrones where Tyrion is with Bronn I think it's the first season, and they're outside this huge castle with huge walls and very well protected, like it just looks impossible to invade. And Tyrion says, yeah, they say that place is impregnable, and Bronn says, give me 10 good men and I'll impregnate her, right? A siege is essentially when one army is forced basically either outside by choice, like sometimes they blockade a city, or they're just forced outside because they can't invade that city. In this case, Odysseus' side couldn't invade Troy. And the idea that got them out of that was Odysseus' idea, which has a lot to do with the Trojan horse, right? Very famous idea where all of these men group inside of a wooden horse. They tell the people of Troy that it is an offering from their goddess Athena, and they accept it as an offering, but when they bring it inside, of course they get invaded by all the soldiers that were inside the horse. They open the gates of Troy, and then all hell breaks loose. And that's the end of the Trojan War. The Odyssey in the books is a lot about the journey back after the war, which should have been very simple, turned out to be 10 more years of being away from home. And what that did is it left Ithaca without a king. Odysseus wasn't back home. His wife has a lot of suitors, led by Robert Pattinson in this film, who's great. He's a standout. In my opinion, the standouts are him, Matt Damon, and John Leguizamo. But everyone did great. Everyone brought their A game. I just thought that they were fantastic. And anyways, yeah, the story is his journey back home. It's the weight that he feels. It's how war changes men. It's the treatment of people, the treatment of strangers. What is the standard for that? Where is civility? Where is that? And what happens when you violate it? Right? You know, a big thing in the story is this thing called Zeus's Law. And in that world, in the world of the Odyssey, and in the mythological world, the idea is, you know, if a stranger comes up to your home and they ask for refuge, they ask for food, you give it to them. You give it to them happily, you give it to them with hospitality, and you help make them feel good, right? Like you feed them and you help them, right? The idea being that you don't know, whoever it may be, could be a beggar, you don't know if they're disguised as a god, right, in that world. And that's why it's called Zeus's Law. It reminds me a lot biblically of when Jesus, he communicated and he was teaching, you know, that the way that you treat the lowest is also how you treat me. That's what it reminded me of. And I think that's why I appreciated the thematic messaging, because I can see what Christopher Nolan is trying to do. I don't know if Christopher Nolan is Christian. I just think it's a good, for lack of a better word, it's a good lesson, man. It's a good theme. It's very powerful, and I don't see it in a lot of movies nowadays. And it's not simply like, oh, you know, treat others how you would have, you know, treated onto you. Like, it's not as simple as that in this film. It's explored, you know, throughout this very complicated journey and this complicated man, which is Odysseus. In this story, he's filled with regret. He's filled with guilt. He's filled with the consequences and the weight of his actions. You know, here's this man whose greatest idea was the Trojan horse. He's very cunning, but also very violating. You won the war, but you open the doors to the killing and essentially like execution of a whole population. You won the war, but in the act of you doing so, you tricked a whole city into thinking that there was already peace and that there was actually an offering, right? And you won the war, but the stories of horror that people of Ithaca are hearing, you know, these men at sea that are doing these atrocities to towns, that are just being barbaric and destroying all of these cities, killing, hurting women, children, and men, you know, those stories are about you. They're not about anybody else. They were about you. And yeah, you won the war, but you lost all your men. And maybe they had already been lost before they died. Maybe you're lost. So it's those themes, man. It's those themes that hit deep. I mean it when I say it's hard for me to say. I'm very hard on movies, man. Very hard. I have a whole video plan talking about why I have a problem with the Rotten Tomatoes, but my gist is this. In Rotten Tomatoes, so many movies have 90%, 90-something percent. And I don't like that. You're telling me that many amount of movies come close to perfection? Nah. But this third act of this film did feel like perfection. Very, very close to it. It was very close to perfection. I think it just hits beat after beat after beat after beat, just all in the right spaces. A lot of emotional hits. You know, this man coming home, the reunions. I did wish that for the reunions to like pull me in a little bit more, like emotionally, but there was still strong emotional satisfaction. And the story is just very powerful. Technically, the film is great, like to look at. Some people are gonna say this is the best made film I've ever seen, and I completely agree. I mean, this it's like, I don't know, man. Like, this expert wooden craftsman just gave you the most beautiful made work. And to some people, it's like, oh yeah, I can also sit in that and sleep on it all day. Other people are gonna be like, that is the most beautifully made work. I'm not gonna take it home with me though. That's what some people are gonna be saying. You know what I'm saying? I mean, the practicality and the lengths that Christopher Nolan and his team, the crew went through to make everything feel real, to be on these onset locations, right? To be feeling the coolness of the water when they're inside the Trojan horse, to have the city of Troy light up on fire, and to have explosions actually bring down the city, to have jet skis create a mini whirlpool. Yes, it was enhanced, obviously, in post production, but the efforts to do that, the efforts to create a, how many meters was it? Like a 6 meter, 60-foot cyclops. I might be wrong in the measurements, but they basically created a huge puppet of a cyclops with the cave where they filmed that scene. They had an actual actor, you know, full makeup, suit, and everything as a cyclops, right? And yes, again, there was things added in post, but the effort to do all of that, it's just great. It's commendable. The cinematography is great. This is the first film to be shot entirely on IMAX cameras. If you wonder why it took them so long, it's because Christopher Nolan challenged the IMAX team to build basically a suppressing system that quieted the whole IMAX camera, and therefore now they could shoot the dialogue scenes. And from what I understand, I was looking into it, some people that have the keenest eye notice that sometimes in the film, I'm gonna say sometimes, this is a very low percentage of the film, some things are out of focus and then they immediately come back in focus. And you think about, wait, why is that? It's because the IMAX cameras have such a razor thin, like, focal, how can I explain it? Like a focal point, right? You know, sometimes if you have your f-stop like be at like 1, it's razor thin. If it keeps going 4, 8, 32, whatever, then you have a lot more space to get things in camera in focus, right? If you go down to f-stop 1, which is what the IMAX cameras had it at, 1 point something, or whoever's cracking that focus, whoever's working on the focus as a cameraman, they have a hard job. But they did amazing. Like, the camera work is outstanding. The practical effects, again, outstanding. The acting, great. Standout, Robert Pattinson. Again, he surprised me. I still can't believe this guy is like Batman, and he's also playing this guy. I think what surprises me most is if you see him in interviews, he's very shy, he's very to himself, but in when he's in movies, he's such a chameleon. Like, that's what he's turning out to be. Such a chameleon in my eyes, as an actor, in a good way. Like, what I'm trying to say, he's very versatile. He's great at it. That's what you want as an actor, right? You don't want them to just be playing the same thing. You don't want them to be playing themselves. I think also what I'm trying to say is he doesn't just play himself. So yeah, like, it was great. He's a sleazy slimeball. You've heard him being called that throughout other YouTube videos. I'm gonna say it here. That's the best description of him in the film. He's trying to get with Penelope. Penelope is like grossed out / like trying to be loyal with her husband. Matt Damon plays Odysseus. He did great. He's gonna get nominated for an Oscar, probably, right? He brought his A game. He did amazing. Tom Holland brought his A game. The sound design, ooh, it was so good. Sound design was really good. There were some times where I couldn't really like hear the dialogue entirely, and that was again like a small percentage of the film, but I think I could read their mouths, and then the music just kind of made up for it. You don't want to hear that as a person listening to this, but it is the truth. I didn't have a big problem with it, but I could have used some subtitles every now and then. But it didn't ruin the experience for me. The soundtrack I thought was great in the second half. In the first half, it was pretty good. In the second half, we start having tracks like Sirens by Ludwig Göransson. Christopher Nolan challenged the soundtrack team and the musical score team to just use Greek instruments of that time. And I was looking into behind the scenes, and these people actually got those instruments from that time from like, I don't know if they were museums or something, and they were allowed to use them. And because the instruments themselves hadn't been completely intact, the team actually had to do so much research. This is the film team, a musical film team, had to do so much research to finish building the rest of this flute-like instrument, right? And then they play the music, and then yeah, it's a lot of harps, it's a lot of really, really nice instrumentals, and I imagine it challenged Ludwig, but it just sounded so good. It sounded amazing. My favorite track that I keep listening to is Odysseus. And that leads me to my next part. My favorite scenes. My favorite scene in the film was the monologue Matt Damon gave. I think because it's the strongest thematically. And it just hit me really emotionally. And it feels like a huge catharsis and a huge like revelation moment for his character. Right? Like just fully explaining why he's been feeling so heavy and why there's been so much guilt and the responsibility / consequences of his actions that he has to live with for the rest of his life. You know, and as we're seeing the fall of Troy, and as we're seeing, as he said, 10 years of rage just pour into the city for one night, the musical score is hitting, Odysseus, the track, is going off. And yeah, that was great. That sent chills all over my body when I first watched it. For me, that moment is extremely thought-provoking. It's one of those things where you like take home with you and you're like, what did that mean? And what does that mean for us now? You know? And then at the very end of the film, you have a really nice line. A very powerful line. Maybe it's not nice, but it is powerful. Where Matt Damon says something, Odysseus, says something like, you know, people are going to sing songs about this story, right? About the Trojan War, about the Trojan horse. And they'll remember that. You know, they'll sing songs about that for who knows how long, till the end of times, right? And the story of the Odyssey has been told for 3,000 plus years, I believe. And then he ends it with a very thought-provoking note. They'll be singing songs about this for I don't know how long, and I'm butchering the quote, but they'll forget the mistake. And that's like, ooh, I see you, Christopher Nolan. And that's, you know, that wrapped it up with a bow really nicely. Again, just really thought-provoking film for me. I mean, if the film taught me anything, it's what I would pass on to you. Just treat others with respect, treat others with love. You never know, man. I think the most interesting aspect of the film was the ripple effects, right? I don't believe in karma. But I do know that one thing leads to another. And the ripple effects that was insinuated, that was caused by his Trojan horse trickery, that was very interesting. How one bad act, and even though he didn't intend it to be that, really led to the violation of so much more. Yeah, the Odyssey, I'm going to give this one an A. I don't think I have anything else to talk about. I really love the Cyclops scene. I thought the siren scene was nice. But yeah, that third act, through and through, really great job. Christopher Nolan does it again. Does it again. Now, let's move on to the parental advisory section. Let's get to it. Okay, so the Odyssey is rated R. That is I believe 17 years and older, if not 18 years and older. And this is, of course, in the United States of America. So, why is it rated R, you may ask? Violence. Not so much gory, even though there is a little bit of it. It is quite violent when it does get violent, if that makes sense. There are some scenes of war. There is a scene of a siege basically broken into. There is a scene, and I'm talking about the Cyclops scene. Of course, this is all spoilers, so please be aware. Cyclops scene is very intense feeling. It's not as violent as I thought it would be, but yeah, I mean, he does chomp on one or two human bodies. Also, in the element of witchcraft, there is a witch known by the name of Circe. She turns the men into pigs. It is a very strong thematic point that Christopher Nolan is delivering here when he does this, but just a heads up, it is quite a graphic scene. In order to talk to the dead, when they go into the underworld, they do a sort of blood sacrifice with a nearby sheep. Foul language? Yes, a little bit sprinkled throughout this film. Sex and nudity? No sex. Leading up to it, kind of. But not really. Nah. No sex. No nudity I can remember, other than coming from the Cyclops, I believe. And even then, I don't even think it shows anything. And look, you're listening to a guy who becomes very aware of certain things, like parental advisory things, because I love watching films with family. I love watching films with my fiance and with her family as well. And some things, you just don't take certain family members to, or you yourself don't watch, right? And that's what the purpose of this is. I'm not about to show this movie to my grandmother. I'm not going to do that. Anyways, that's why I do this. I would say, though, this is a heavy feeling film, mature, and it can be intense. The most intense aspects for me were the Circe scene, which is about an hour and 10 into the film. The transformation itself is about 4 minutes long. And the Cyclops scene, which is about 30 minutes into the film. Those were the most intense. And the most violent have to do with Troy. Other than that, and surprising jump scares that literally scared me and whoever was sitting next to me, which have to do with Agamemnon, I think that's it. Guys, let me know what you thought about the film. Let me know what you thought about the Odyssey. Is Christopher Nolan still on track to becoming one of the greatest? If he isn't already, he is in my list of all time. You guys let me know. What is your favorite Christopher Nolan film? I would say my answer, but I'm going to hold it off and I'll create a ranking Christopher Nolan list, because I would like to discuss all of his films. I think I've seen all of them except his very first one, which I believe is called The Following. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your attention. God bless. Bye-bye.